What the hell was that last night? I watched Donald Trump's primetime address to the nation so you wouldn't have to. And I was left with these impressions. What the actual F was that? And most importantly, Donald, if things are so great, why are you so damn angry? Dude is really ranting and raving. And to make matters worse for Donald, he was having to do this off a teleprompter. Apparently, when you convince the networks to let you break into prime time, they don't give you much time. He only had something like 22 minutes, and he was going through rapid fire and stumbling over words, his same old grievances, and kind of braggadocious nature, his braggadocious speeches. This was Trump's greatest hits. There was nothing new here. This did not deserve prime time. So I can only think that Donald Trump wanted to use this time to announce a war against Venezuela, but he was kind of 6'7", 6'7". He didn't know what the hell he was doing, if he was doing it. And so I guess this was the backup speech they loaded into the teleprompter. I would love a Freedom of Information Act request for the alternative speech, because if this is what he thought it was worthwhile to convince the networks, again, to break into, I guess last night, I'm not a big watcher, but it's a massive show. Wasn't it like the season finale of Survivor? And he was able to cut into it, which means millions of people were subjected to his illiterate, insane, angry, fib-filled, boring, irrelevant speech. So if you actually don't believe me, let me begin. I'm only going to play you one clip, because one clip is really all you need. Trust me. So let me start, before I show you this, with one fact. One fact. And here we go. This is a chart from Fred. Now, you might wonder, what the hell is Fred? Fred is the Federal Reserve of St. Louis. And if you are a Fed watcher, or maybe you're an economist, or you're a weirdo law professor like me who likes Fred, you might always be quite interested in their publications. And this includes right here something put up, I think it was yesterday. I was going to share this with you on the show yesterday, but we didn't have time. What you see here, as Carl Quintanilla points out, is see if you can spot Liberation Day. So what I want you to see, what this chart is, let's take a close look. The vertical, the up and down axis, is thousands of people. And this is employment, right? All employees manufacturing. Okay, so this is not government employees or retail, what have you. And this comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics via Fred, the St. Louis Federal Reserve. Okay, there are many regional Federal Reserve banks. This is one of them. Great. And you can see the employment rate there, thousands of persons in manufacturing. If you see at this peak that says it's basically 12,770,000. Okay, if you add the numbers correctly there, so it's over 12 million. Okay, people employed in manufacturing. If you slide over the horizontal axis, you will see the date of that peak, and that peak appears to be obviously the quarter before. It looks like it must be I'm thinking it's probably November of 2024. Okay. And you look at this, right? Because it's every 2 months. When Joe Biden left office, there were 12.7 million manufacturing jobs, right? And then we get never quite up to that peak, but the highest peak this year during the Trump administration, if you take a look at that, is between March and May. So in April of 2025, there were, roughly in that same ballpark of 12.7 million jobs. Now we are down. It's already down. And at the end of it, the beginning of November, or the end of November of this year, we are down nearly 100,000 manufacturing jobs. Now, if you want to see Liberation Day, what is Liberation Day? Liberation Day was the day Donald Trump announced massive tariffs on, sort of many nations, not just specific products. And I'll back out of this shot. You can see that the peak there was the announcement, and it has been a straight slide down. Now, I point this out to you so I can prepare you for the angry Donald Trump talking about how happy he is about tariffs. He's almost spitting happy, and other bullshit that he spews. Let me play this for you. Sorry. One more thing, because I don't want your brain to be infected with what Donald Trump says. So let me tell you, Donald Trump is complaining that this job is hard, that he's claiming it's all Biden's fault. But here's the deal. Joe Biden handed Donald Trump an economy that was the envy of the world. And if you don't believe me, because who am I? I'm not an economist. I'm the lady who talks at you on your phone, on your TV, or on your computer in the morning. I am not an economist. I'm a law professor. So let's look at what the Economist magazine cover was a year ago. This is what you can see. Kevin Cruz, history professor at Princeton, shared this on Blue Sky. Okay, so here it is, and he's referring to something you're going to hear Donald Trump say. Trump said last night, 1 year ago, our country was dead. But actually, here is this Economist cover. You can see it says, "The envy of the world, America's economy, a special report." And you see, it's like the Benjamin Franklin's, the $100 bills, on fire in a good way. Here we are. It was going great, according to the Economist. Okay, let's take a peek into Donald Trump's alternative reality, where he believes if he screams at us enough, we won't notice that prices are high and wages are not keeping up with them. I promise you, I've got some silly things to say on the other side of this clip, which I promise you also is the only one you will be subjected to. Here we go.
Our greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail. totally failed. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every.
That was pretty much the tone and message the entire time. Okay. Angry. In fact, he was reading the teleprompter pretty well then. So, yeah, really out of touch, really, absolutely deranged and angry. And if he shouts enough, I guess we absolutely have to believe him. Now, let's talk about the supposed factories that are being built here. Now, guys, some of the things that have gotten really expensive, I think you know, are coffee. It's coffee. Let me take a sip of my coffee because I love it. Now, do you know where coffee comes from? I don't mean geographically, I mean what coffee is made out of, right? This morning, Michael made the coffee. So much gratitude. Love it. And it started out as beans, right? The coffee this morning, it was roasted beans. And then he ground it. And then we've got this really cool, it's a French press, but it's a carafe, so it keeps the coffee warm. But just in case my coffee doesn't stay warm during the show, I actually have a little special heating pad for my coffee. That is how coffee obsessed I am. I am a coffee connoisseur. If there was only one food I could have, if they said, I don't know who they are, but let's be dramatic. If they said, no more food for you, the only thing you can have is one thing. Some people would say cake, pie. Some people might say steak. Others might say my wine. No, coffee. I'm pretty sure if you gave me liquid nutrients or whatever other things to maintain my health, but I could only have one food, I know it would be coffee. So let's get back to this. Coffee begins as beans, not beans that are roasted, but beans that grow on plants in hospitable environments. Okay? You get this, right? Coffee grows on plants. Green plants, plants that grow in the ground, not a manufacturing plant. You are not going to build a giant manufacturing plant for coffee. Similarly, banana plants. We ain't going to have banana plants. Okay. And it goes on from there. So, yeah, cool, Donald. Now, I would like to share with you one person, Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, the wonderful husband of Gabby Gifford, who bravely has stayed in the public eye after she survived a shooting that left her paralyzed and unable to speak and walk initially. And wonderful person, wonderful family. And Mark Kelly had something to say when Jen Psaki discussed the speech. Let's play it.
Just making stuff up. And he just says a bunch of stuff, and he says this stuff is going to happen. There's no policy there. And I'm kind of wondering, why is he so angry and desperate and defensive?
Yeah.
Somebody must have showed him some abysmal poll numbers and said, you better get out there in front of the American people and explain to them why these poll numbers shouldn't be in the toilet. So, and then I wish somebody would tell him how math works.
Yeah.
You know, the prices are going to go down 500 or 600%. Anyone who's been through the 6th grade by then knows that is not a thing.
Let's talk about that math. He still is saying, despite that people have told him, I hope that this isn't how math works, that if he says your prices for X, Y, or Z are going to go down 500%. If I said, let's say I'm paying $100 for something and I say the price is going to go down 50%, it will then be $50. If I say the price of your $100 item is going to go down 75%, it will then be $25. Similarly, if I tell you that item that costs $100 will go down 100%, it will be free. And kicker, drum roll. Zzz. What if I tell you, or Donald tells you, it's going to go down 500%? What price would that be? He is insane because no one is going to go down below zero for the price of something. If something goes down, let's say 200%, let's use that number. If 100% gets you from $100 to zero, in theory, but this isn't how math works, 200% would be they tell you, take this from me and here's $100. This is actually not how math works, guys. You can't go down more than 100% of something. Anything more than that is still zero. Okay, embarrassing. And no one can tell that guy anything. Now, I have so much good news. Really important news for you that may have just slipped by because it's not being covered, even though it's huge, because there's all this other stuff happening, right? Like this is the stuff that's in the front, and I want to show you what's sort of in the back, right? On stage in the front are things like, is there going to be war in Venezuela? And what the F is wrong with Donald Trump? And, oh, Don Bongino is retiring, and on and on and on, right? And are the Epstein files going to be released on Friday? And what's going on with healthcare? These things are in the front. I'm going to keep hearing those over and over again. But there has been some incredible breaking news in the area of scandal and money that I need to talk with you about. And the first, my friends, that you may have missed that I want to discuss with you yesterday is that there was incredible, and here we go, incredible reporting in the New York Times about how Jeff Epstein actually got rich. Now, I want to be clear to you. I'm talking about his early years. I'm not discussing, because the article doesn't go into detail about any blackmail schemes once he was already super wealthy. This unbelievably researched and written article in the New York Times starts with the moment he leaves Dalton School, where he is kicked out by Bill Barr's father, who was the headmaster, and lands at the major investment banking firm Bear Stearns, where he has been taken under the wing of Jimmy Kane at Bear Stearns. So I'm going to back out of this shot, and I think I have used up, this was a free article that I'm sharing, but I've used up all of mine. But let me just throw this in the chat. Like, I can't gift this to you for free, but maybe this will work for you. So this is incredible. Kind of the long and the short of this, as I tell you, is he was a thief and a con artist. And he used dating women when they were roughly his age who were connected and wealthy to give, or just connected through their jobs to give him access. Now, this is a photograph of him in 1980 when Cosmo magazine called him the Bachelor of the Month. Yikes, Cosmo. Okay, this is an incredibly well reported piece. Look at the number of reporters on this. 4 of them, I know they're writing well. One of them has been on my show before. This is David Enrich, Steve Eder, Jessica Silver Greenberg, and Matthew Goldstein. This is, I think, the first time I've seen Eder's byline, but all 3 of these others, Enrich, Silver, Greenberg, and Goldstein, have been on the beat before following Money Matters. Okay, this article came out on Tuesday. And this is, let me give you the lead here. One evening in early 1976, a bushy haired Jeffrey Epstein showed up for an event at an art gallery in Midtown Manhattan. Epstein was a math and physics teacher at the city's prestigious Dalton School, and the father of one of his students had invited him. Epstein initially demurred, saying he didn't go out much, but eventually relented. It would turn out to be the best decision, one of the best decisions he ever made. And so while he is there, um, he meets Ace Greenberg, who was the top executive at Bear Stearns. Yes, after Ace Greenberg recruits him, Jimmy Kane later takes him under his wing. Both of these very powerful men. So he ends up going to work at Bear Stearns. And you might wonder, well, this guy, he claimed that he had, at that point, Jeff Epstein claimed he had a degree, at least one undergraduate degree from a university in California. However, and this is important, Ace Greenberg, and I'm reading this from the article, helped build Bear Stearns into one of the industry's scrappiest firms by eschewing the traditional investment banking practice of hiring Ivy Leaguers with MBAs. Ace preferred what he called PSDs, those who were poor, smart, and had a deep desire to become rich. Okay, so apparently Epstein was a math whiz and piano virtuoso. That's all anyone knew about him. So he ends up landing a job. When he takes this job, it paid him $25,000 a year, which is in today's dollars, $140,000. Not bad for a guy who's just been fired from a prep school for being too familiar with the students. So he's taken under his wing, and then something happens where the personnel department calls and told one of the guys there that, and here's Ace Greenberg, tells one of the people there that Jeff Epstein actually had never gotten degrees from the two California universities he claimed. And normally, I got to tell you, guys, normally, and I'm going to remove this here, normally that would be a firing offense. If you lie on your resume about your credentials, it's a problem. And so the head of this HR official talks to the guy that Epstein was working for, a guy named Tenenbaum, and told him, listen, literally said, like, are you sitting down? And this is, by the way, the reason why they know this story is because Michael Tenenbaum, a senior executive, whose son happened to go to Dalton and was his student, was supervising him. So HR calls Tenenbaum, and Tenenbaum, this guy, Michael Tenenbaum, as this reporting says, was quote unquote in a delicate spot. He goes up to the boss, to the top Bear Stearns executive at the time, this guy, Ace Greenberg. And I think, I don't know if I'm telling you that Ace Greenberg was the CEO at the time, but I'm not sure if when he was a top executive. Yeah, he was a CEO from 78 to 93. So I'm not sure if at that exact moment, no, because it was 70, right before Ace Greenberg becomes a CEO, 2 years before. He's a top executive. And so this guy goes to Ace and says, listen, Epstein is a liar. Okay. So Epstein so Tenenbaum says to Ace, what do I do? And Ace Greenberg said, treat Epstein like any other employee. Don't give him special treatment. So Michael Tenenbaum calls Jeffrey Epstein into his office and says, you lied about your education. And what Jeffrey Epstein did, which I will tell you, very few people would have the ability to do this, partially because he is I'm just going to say this, a white man he was given the benefit of the doubt by another white man. I think people tend to pat each other on the back and give people second chances when they look like them. Because I got to tell you, if this were me, first of all, I would never do it. Or anyone who was, I'm not certain, but I suspect a person of color would not have been treated this way. So Tenenbaum says to Epstein, "You lied about your education." And here's what Epstein apparently said. "Yes, I know." And the article says, "Yes, I know," Epstein calmly replied. He had never graduated from college. Tenenbaum recalls being disarmed by the admission. Decades later, he would regard it as an example of Epstein's ability to manipulate his marks, in this case, him. "Why did you do it?" Tenenbaum stammered. And Epstein said, without an impressive degree or two, quote, "I knew nobody would give me a chance," end quote. And that resonated with Tenenbaum, and he let it pass. Quite unfortunate, because the rest of this article details the way in which Epstein, and let me just show you what this guy, Michael Tenenbaum, here he is. This is what he looks like. He was interviewed for this article, and he is filled with regret. Thanks, Michael Tenenbaum. Okay, so it goes on from there. And often what Epstein was doing is he was, for example, he worked at Bear Stearns, and at some point he gets pushed out. Like at some point he's at Bear Stearns, and within a few years of being there, he was making $200,000 a year, which is equivalent today to $800,000. So he is basically on the rise. But even though he's making money, he numerous times has to be sued because he doesn't pay his rent and so on. Okay, so what happens next is he becomes friends with Jimmy Kane, who later, after Ace Greenberg, later, like during the financial crisis of 2008, was when Jimmy Kane was running the firm. And famously, as Bear Stearns was struggling, even before in 2007, when the Bear Stearns hedge funds that were, let's just say this, Bear Stearns was struggling in 2007 and in 2008, and Jimmy Kane was famously, supposedly smoking pot and playing golf. That's the kind of guy he was. But before that happened, Jimmy Kane takes Jeffrey Epstein under his wing and introduces him to his clients. And basically, Michael Tenenbaum, the guy you just saw in that photograph, described both Epstein and Kane as, quote unquote, two sleazeballs. At any rate, that very much helped him. And the reason why this is new, Epstein gets fired. I'm sorry, not yet. He doesn't get fired right away, but here's the kind of shit he was pulling. He had a girlfriend who he took on a trip. He goes, I'm sorry, I'll say it differently. He goes to some Caribbean conference. And while he is there, he used a Bear Stearns expense account to spend $10,000 on jewelry and clothing for this girlfriend. He charges this to the firm. So naturally, the accounting department notices this. And it gets reported by the controller. That's like the person second in line to the CFO. And Ace Greenberg was shrugged it off. Okay. But then, I'm just going to get, kind of sum this up. Later, he continued to get involved in some shady things. And he finally cheats some of Bear Stearns' clients and gets kicked out. Or he quits before he gets kicked out. And then he gets involved in a $500,000 oil scam. And this wealthy family cheats them out of their money. And then he gets involved with, let me show you, rubbing elbows with some socialites. He was in these circles. And ultimately, he cheated, he lied, he didn't pay his bills. And here's the last thing I will say. about this because this article is fascinating. A lot of people wonder how Jeffrey Epstein ended up managing at the outset Les Wexner, the head of limited brands. How did he and Victoria's Secret? How did Jeff Epstein get in his good graces and start managing his money? Apparently, Jeff Epstein lied and told Les Wexner that Les's existing money manager was cheating him. And Les Wexner believed him. And once Epstein had his hands on that money, he would just pay himself how much he wanted to. He was buying up real estate, whatever he wanted out of those funds. Now, of course, there is more to the Epstein story, but I'm just laying the groundwork to let you know that he was your usual con man, cheat, and white collar criminal. There were some SEC investigations and on and on. This was such a good article. I can't even recommend it to you enough. People are always saying, follow the money. This is one piece of the money. And I know it's much more salacious and interesting to understand how he was engaged in blackmail, most likely, and to follow the money in that way. But for me, part of my thesis and sort of where I focus my academic work, including in the book Big Dirty Money, is on the failure to hold people engaged in white collar crime accountable. And that's how they gain power and wealth. And I didn't even have Jeff Epstein in mind at the time. Great. So let's go on to the next thing that you need to know. And this goes to money and power as well. On the other end of the spectrum, while these greedy, terrible people like Jeff Epstein and Jimmy Kane and Donald Trump try to gather more and more riches to gain more and more power and exploit more and more people, at the other end, what are they using that power for? And I want to remind you, one of the worst things that Elon Musk participated in and Donald Trump endorsed was cutting off U.S. aid. And so there was an incredible story. And this helps fund children and nations around the world that are still developing and don't have, for a variety of reasons, access to the kind of wealth that we do. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, there is an article in ProPublica that just came out. And here we go. This is entitled Inside the Trump Administration's Man-Made Hunger Crisis. And this was published yesterday, okay, and a Wednesday morning. The authors are Brett Murphy and Anna Maria Berry Jester. Photographs by Brian Utlino. Okay. And this is the second part in a 3-part series, but here are the highlights of this article, and let me drop it in the chat. Okay. So here are the highlights. It involves Kenya. The first highlight is that this was a man-made crisis, that Trump officials were warned repeatedly that cutting off food aid to refugees in Kenya would lead to violence and death. They did so anyway, and thousands starved. I'm reading these quick notes at the beginning, highlights. The second highlight, reduced rations. To make the dwindling funds last, aid workers cut rations this summer to the point that half the camp received no food at all, forcing people to make impossible choices. And then finally, a new deal. The U.S. has since released some funds that would allow workers to keep distributing food through at least March, though rations are still drastically reduced. That's pure evil. That is. There is no reason why we should have been doing that. And now I do have for you my last my last story, and this just came out yesterday as well about money and power. This is a piece in the New York Times again, and this is authored by someone we've had on the show, and I'm going to have him back, Eric Lipton, and his co-author is David Yaffe-Bellany. And let me pull this up. This is, of course, about one of my favorite topics, crypto. And I'm going to throw this URL into the chat as well. Okay. So what do we have here? The headline is What Trump's Embrace of Crypto Has Unleashed. The subtitle is A Boundary-Pushing Array of New Crypto Ventures Have Reached the Stock Market, Enticing Investors and Leading to More Risk-Taking. And the story begins as follows. This summer, a group of executives pitched a business plan to Anthony Scaramucci, the Wall Street financier and short-lived advisor to President Trump. They wanted Mr. Scaramucci to join a publicly traded company with a peculiar strategy, accumulating enormous quantities of cryptocurrency to make its business more appealing to investors. The article goes on. They, quote, didn't really have to pitch it to me, end quote, said Mr. Scaramucci, who was soon unveiled as an advisor to 3 little-known companies with this same plan. Quote, it was a pretty easy conversation, end quote. The excitement did not last. The crypto market cratered this fall, sending shares of all 3 Mr. Scaramucci's ventures tumbling. The worst performer plunged more than 80%. Fun times. Fun times. Now, I'm hoping to get Eric back on the show to talk about this, because we have a lot to talk about. But as you may know, there's more to be said, because Donald Trump is heavily involved in crypto. And so you might be interested to know that the Wall Street Journal has just put out a story about that. So I'm going to give you a taste of this, and then I'll go on to other topics. But I'm getting you prepared for the great crypto disasters ahead of us. Don't worry. There will be bailouts. Okay, let's add this to the stage. This is a Wall Street Journal piece from today, from this morning, about an hour ago. And the title is The Trump Family Business Empire is Growing. We mapped out 268 pieces of it. Okay, so let's look at this. I love when they do their graphics here. The authors are David Uberti, Juanje Gomez, and Cara de Pena. Let me read you the opening here. And I think if I blow it up a little bit. We have, when President Trump ran for re-election in 2024, he and his family already had vast business interests stretching from Manhattan office towers to a golf course in Ireland, to hotel deals as far away as Vietnam. The article goes on. The president's second term has brought a major expansion of that empire, with forays into cryptocurrency, communications, financial products, and now a fusion power deal. Ventures launched since Trump's re-election generated at least $4 billion in proceeds and paper wealth for the family as of December, according to company statements and securities filings. The article goes on. It's unprecedented for a president to have such far-reaching business interests while in office, including in areas his administration regulates. Quote, and this is from Caroline Levitt. Neither the president nor his family have ever engaged or will ever engage in conflicts of interest, end quote, White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt said in a statement, adding that Trump is committed to making the U.S. the, quote, crypto capital of the world, end quote. JFC. My God, people, this is a disaster. Okay, the article goes on. See how the Trump business empire is set up and explore it for yourself at the end. So this is super fun. And you see these dots that represent the different businesses. You've got Donald, Eric, and Don Jr. at the center. It's kind of like a network analysis. And here is Trump and his family have interest in a sprawling web of businesses, financial disclosures, and securities filing show. Each entity is shown here with a dot. Okay, now, they change size. These range from major businesses, represented here with the largest dots, to more modest ventures and holding companies with less strategic value or prominence, shown with smaller dots. Many entities are ultimately controlled by the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust. The president is its main beneficiary, while son Don Jr. has voting power, according to an April securities filing. Let me just tell you, even if Jr. has the voting power, do you actually think he doesn't do what his father asks? Okay. Woof. Now, this is dividing it up by category. So much of the family business focuses on real estate and licensing of the Trump brand. It includes 16 golf clubs and several hotels, as well as office towers. So you can see this giant oval at the top is real estate. Below that, he's got finance, media, other, and merchandise. Excuse me. And then the recent expansion has made the Trumps a major player in the crypto world. They have launched a host of new ventures and products, from meme coins to data centers. The president is also pushing to relax regulations on the industry. Shockers. Okay. The biggest crypto venture, World Liberty Financial, this is his biggest crypto venture. It has sold about $1.4 billion worth of World Liberty Financial tokens, a digital asset it created, I should add, out of thin air. That was my additional comment. The Wall Street Journal reported the firm also has launched USDI, a stablecoin whose value is pegged to the dollar and which generates significant interest income. Okay. And then the Trumps have a major stake in this business. World Liberty site says it's 38% owned by an entity called DT Marks DeFi LLC. So you can see in this chart, what the hell is that? And they show you. Do you see how this goes up here? So you see the circle toward the bottom of the screen. You see this, it says World Liberty Financial. If you trace it up through all these different companies and holding companies, you end up with the branch on the left, which is 30% owned by undisclosed Trump family members. And then the rest of it essentially going all the way up essentially to Donald Trump via numerous levels of companies. Okay, so ultimately controlled by Trump and his family members through a complex ownership structure. So if you look at this World Liberty Financial, 38% of it is owned by Trump or his families, is what they're showing. Okay, in addition to their ownership interests in these businesses, the Trumps are co-founders or operators of many of them. Trump and his sons co-founded World Liberty, and that's where you get Barron, the guy who is still in college, who is somehow running shit. Okay. The Trumps receive, I love how this looks. Do you see the money flowing up? The Trumps receive 75% of net proceeds when World Liberty sells tokens. That's interesting because even though they have 38% of the holdings, they get more of the money. Plus, they get a cut of stablecoin returns. That revenue share would translate into about $1 billion in proceeds so far for the Trumps. That's this year. And the Trumps' unsold tokens are worth about $3 billion as of December, they're saying. And I say on paper. And guys, this goes on and on. I think it's fascinating. I think that you should take a look at that. I also think there are a lot of people who criticize the New York Times as well as the Wall Street Journal, in part maybe for the reporting, in part for their editorial pages, but there is nobody who is doing this kind of work. It's my favorite sources are ProPublica, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, period. Sometimes the Washington Post even has good reporting. I just want to let you know that. Now, I got a couple more things on the money front, and then I got some good clips for you. It's not just Donald Trump himself as a private citizen who is getting rich. Donald Trump is also using his position as president to shake down companies and have the United States take equity stakes in them. This is something that some people might call socialism. Okay, let's look at this. I'm going to blow this up. These are companies, according to the Dispatch, which sourced from the New York Times, Bloomberg, Reuters, and CNBC, of companies where Donald Trump has had the U.S. government, the Treasury, take direct stakes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And these are just the ones we know about. Now, I don't agree with Scott Horton that he says they've nationalized them. An equity stake by the government is not nationalization, but it sure as hell is suspicious. We have these companies you may have heard of, U.S. Steel, NVIDIA, and so on. It's just really astonishing. AMD, Intel, on and on. Okay, we can dig into that. But this is also happening. And I bet you're not thinking about it. Because if there weren't all this other chaos, this would probably be really relevant in front page news every flippin' day. Now, speaking of front page news, yesterday, Jack Smith, former special prosecutor, testified before a House committee. And unfortunately, the Republicans refused to allow him to testify in public. But what we do know, because he, I think, shared his written testimony with the public before the Q&A began, is this. And Kyle Griffin is associated with MS Now. Here we go. Jack Smith, in his opening statement to House Judiciary, says, quote, "Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election and to prevent the lawful transfer of power." You go, Jack, right? He is being asked to testify because Donald Trump is on his revenge tour. Good luck. Good luck trying to indict him and try him. I would love to see that because the public would see this bullshit. This is what happened. And if it weren't for Merrick Garland dragging his feet and John Roberts and his team at the Supreme Court creating a very complicated immunity scheme and also dragging their feet in many, many months in hearing the case where Trump was challenging the indictments, we would have had time to see a trial. It ultimately got dropped when Donald Trump became the president-elect. Okay, that is a lot going on in the news. And I'm hoping that this was illuminating for you because some of this stuff you might have missed. But let's also say that things are not going well for Donald Trump and the economy. And it's so clear that he is running the place for his rich benefactors and giant businesses, even as he elbows in and tries to take a piece of control. Okay, let's play AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who I think always is worth listening to when it comes to money and power. Let's play this.
Mr. Speaker, President Trump ran on a promise to the American people that ICE would go after the worst of the worst. Well, we are now coming up on a year of this presidency, and I want to talk to the folks at home who feel disillusioned by what ICE is doing in our country. Because what we have seen is that ICE is not overwhelmingly going after criminals. In fact, over 70% of people currently detained in detention facilities do not have a criminal record. So who are they going after? They are going after 6-year-olds in my district. They are going after students and permanent residents for their political views. They are going after Americans born and raised in the United States. And time again, Trump has floated taking away citizenship from U.S. citizens based on their ethnicity. At every point, this administration has lied to us about ICE in America, while some of the wealthiest actors in our country have tried to sell us a myth to defend it, including private prison contractors. And that myth, that ideology, is that our immigrant neighbors are our enemies and more dangerous than us. And they sustain that myth because if everybody believes it, they can get away with robbing all of us. I want to remind you where the real crime is. It's in the oligarchs taking $170 billion of our money from health care and food assistance and public programs and taking that and funneling it into a secret police program. It's the authoritarians trying to create a black box because once it is established, they can put political dissidents inside of it. But their hatred is a story, a myth, and we can choose to reject it. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller want you to believe that this is who we are as a country. And we are here to say that it is not. We are a country that has fought and defeated the Confederacy, that has defeated a history of civil rights violations, of secret police, of fascism. We are a country guided by a monument to freedom on the waters of New York City, who shines brightly and welcomes, quote, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free to our shores. So right now, I ask everyone in our country to fight for that ideal, to fight for this legacy. Thank you, and I yield back.
Incredible how she links this together. I've got one more thing to share with you before Crazy Town. So even Donald Trump's administration is not really backing his story about the economy. And we have this morning, Lori Chavez de Remer, who is the Secretary of Labor, on Fox News with Maria Bartiromo, once called the Money Honey, which is, I think, a really cute name that I would like, but I don't think you get to just get that name. Anyway, here we go. And also, she has been a shameless cheerleader for the Trump administration, so I really don't want her name. Okay, let's play this because what's important here, this is Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor. Listen carefully to the question, and then we'll talk on the other side.
To this weakening of the numbers, do you believe that the weakening of the numbers month to month on jobs and the unemployment rate ticking up, is that a function of AI or is that a function of some weakness in the broader economy?
Absolutely not. It's not a function of AI. Again, because we want to make sure that we're answering the call of these market demands. You know,
not a function of AI, but actually a function of weakness in the economy. Okay, that's probably not what Donald Trump wants to hear. Let's continue and hear the rest of what she has to say.
But there was a lot of companies who increased their employee growth numbers, and maybe they're laying off for those reasons, and they have to answer that to the American people. But I will tell you, at the Department of Labor, what we're doing is focusing on the apprenticeship program. We're focusing, we've registered almost 300,000 new apprentices. We're answering the call for 700,000 jobs in electricians, machinists, plumbers, pipe fitters. We want to make sure the trades are prepared and that we can build the data centers that are going to make.
Okay. data centers for AI, but also manufacturing jobs. They have a lot of ideas in the Trump administration, like we need to build more housing and we need more people who take jobs on. When you're deporting immigrants, you are decreasing the labor supply, which means the cost. Oh, anyway, I don't even need to go on and on about this. But the bottom line is there is weakness in the economy, according to Donald Trump's own labor secretary. And this is going to bring us to Crazy Town. Let's go. Okay, so Crazy Town, since this was kind of a wonky show, is going to be a special wonky Crazy Town, which is this. You may know that there are many federal agencies, and we often call them independent agencies. Independent means, like you would think, independent of the president, of the administration. Now, these agencies, whether in the case we're talking about, the Federal Communications Commission or the Securities and Exchange Commission, of course, the president has a role in through the Senate confirmation process of appointing people. And there is, in some cases, commissions, as in the FCC and the Federal Trade Commission, and in the, I'm trying to think of another, the Securities and Exchange Commission. And the way that folks have served is they serve their term and can't usually be fired except for cause. Of course, this is being now challenged up at the Supreme Court. There is now becoming a notion developed, a completely bogus theory created over the years to support more of a monarchy than a republic, where this so-called unitary executive, which was not part of what the founders wanted, this idea that everything in the executive branch is controlled by the president. So this is sort of what folks have been talking about, but I was shocked. This is what's crazy when Senator Ben Ray Lujan is questioning Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, as to whether he thinks the FCC, right, that controls the airwaves and so on, is an independent agency. This gets into this question of propaganda, right? This gets into the question of freedom of speech. If there was ever any agency that should be considered independent, it should be the FCC. Let's listen to this back and forth in Crazy Town.
An independent agency.
Senator, thanks for that question. I think
yes or no is all we need, sir. Yes or no, is it independent?
Well, there's a test for this in the law, in the key portion of that
Just
test.
Yes or no, Brendan?
The key portion of that test is...
Okay, I'm going to go to Commissioner Trusty. So just so you know, Brendan, on your website, it just simply says, man, the FCC is independent. This isn't a trick question.
Okay, the FCC is
yes
not.
Or no?
Is not.
Okay.
Is not.
So is your website wrong? Is your website lying?
Possibly. The FCC is not an independent agency.
Okay, can I read this to you? The FCC's mission on the homepage of the FCC, man, an independent U.S. government agency overseen by Congress. Is that factual or is that a lie?
The FCC is not formally an independent agency.
Is this true or is this a lie?
I'm happy to answer your question.
Okay.
The sine qua non of independence is being removable by the president.
The sine qua non of independence is being removable by the president. Yeah, we love sine qua non, the essential part. What he's going back to is, I'm not independent if the president can throw me out. Okay, sure, Brendan, let's go.
Chairman, I have a little bit of time. I'll get back to you.
The FCC is not an independent agency, formally speaking.
Appreciate you saying that and being honest with the American people. Commissioner Trusty?
Senator, thank you for the question. The president is the chief executive vested with all executive power in our government, and FCC commissioners are not. We do not have for-cause removal protections, which means that we aren't independent.
So is your website lying?
I can't speak to the website. I've not seen that.
You all are the commissioners in charge of this place, right? So this stuff has to be approved by one of you. If this is lying, then you should just fix it. Let me just say that. That wasn't even my gotcha question. I'm surprised that I burned up 3 minutes talking about this damn thing. Commissioner Gomez?
I mean, this is so important. And I'm thinking you're not seeing this. This is what's happening. We will reverse this nonsense. We need to throw these people out. We just have to. I will see you. I think today's Thursday. I will see you tomorrow on Friday. And tomorrow you will see, and I'm going to post it this evening, the plan for how you can sign up to join Sunday's brunch time Zoom. We are going to have so much fun. Some of you, we've all met each other before. If you haven't done it, you'll love it. You can join us. And I'll have that, I'll advertise it better tomorrow, but I will put it up on here on YouTube on the sort of chat area. It might be hard to find. So tomorrow, I'm sure Deb will help you, guide you. Jason will encourage you, and AJ will continue to cheer us on and bring some more words of the day. Thanks for a great day. Bye, guys.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.